Yes, I have enough stories for one of these again. As always, links in the description. Chapter 11, Sadayo's Secret Slip-Up. You guys remember the Adult Confidante AU, right? If not, I did a fantastic episode on it before I changed the logo. Go watch it. Basically, it's an alternate take on Persona 5 where the teenagers are adults and the adults are teenagers, with the adult confidants being the Phantom Thieves. Sadayo Kawakami, best girl in both universes, works part-time at a cat-themed maid cafe as opposed to her canonical maid-for-hire side job. Naturally, she would be mortified if anyone she knows outside of work were to find out. So, take a guess what happens. Happy Kawakame. Chapter 12. Career Guidance. It's kinda repetitive how many Persona users either are in police type work or want to be, but Persona 4 offers a unique opportunity through Dojima, who can serve as a mentor for any of the investigation team that want to join the police. Chie, for instance. So this is her talking with him about her goal. Simple. Chapter 13. Cooler Heads. So, I've made it no big secret how annoyed I get over how dull and obnoxious the hot spring scenes in Persona are. I may even make a wasted potential one day, but until then I have 4 stories in this set focused on them and how they should have played out. First is Persona 3's, where Aigis doesn't just let the boys get murdered by Mitsuru, but instead steps in to very logically try to defuse the situation. Chapter 14. The Great Escape. This one is the P3 portable FemC version. Since the player has the option to sabotage the search if they know the right answers, I took that idea as her actual motivation, covering for the guys and tricking the girls numerous times. Chapter 15. Hashtag June 5. Since I was writing these around this date when I came up with the joke, I had to write this short scene where Chie accidentally creates a marketing gimmick for Juness. Plus, I just enjoy seeing Chie and Yusuke actually being civil with one another. We don't get nearly enough of that. Let's make June 5 a real day next year. Every day's great at your June 5. Chapter 16. Reflective Pool. Persona 4's hot spring scene plays out unchanged here, but the girls feel bad about it afterwards and apologise to the guys. Other things are apologised for as well, bringing everyone a lot closer together. Chapter 17. Boiling Point. Persona 5 Strikers version closes off the quadrilogy, centered on Ryuji finally having had enough with how the boys are often treated by the girls, but especially him. And yes, the girls beating him up after Shido's palace is brought against them, because that's the most egregious shit in the entire P5 series. Whoever at Atlas hates Best Boy deserves to be beaten up and left in the street themselves. Cunt. Chapter 18. Queen of Skulls. This one was made for another themed event, in this case Ryukoto Week 2021's King/Queen prompt. Ryuji and Makoto are trying new things and figuring stuff out in their relationship. And yeah, they treat each other as a king and queen as they both deserve to be. Chapter 19. Shot Through the Heart. This one was inspired by my then recent playthrough of P4G on PC. In my playthrough, you dated Naoto exclusively. Before that though, I had her in the party during the Kunino Sagiri fight, in which she got mind controlled with the rest of Yu's friends, and she kept critting him with gunfire. Then he asked her out like the next day. And given how useful and new she is at this point, I imagine most people choosing to date Naoto have had a similar experience. Chapter 20. Yusuke's Muse. This one's just a short scene where the Phantom Thieves are hanging out sometime after the events of stealing her heart, and Yusuke finds artistic inspiration in Joker and Anne. That's all. If you find that a disappointing note to end on, don't forget that this series gets bonus stories. And this time it is The Lover's Awakening. Making up for the lack of P3 compared to 4 and 5 this time, let's talk about this longer story about a popular Persona 3 ship. I'd like to start by recommending you go and read at least the opening scene first, since the story is meant to be read relatively blind. If you've already done that or are too much of a coward, here's the rundown. I had an idea for a simple story. Yukari discovers her feelings for Makoto through the Arcana Lovers encounter. When they persist, even after the Shadow is killed, she then wonders if those feelings were put there by the Shadow, or if they were there all along and the Shadow just brought them out of her. I told a friend about this story and later joked, since she's a big fan of Yukari and Mitsuru as a couple, the same story but it's Mitsuru that Yukari has feelings for. Then, the more I thought about it, the more I realised that it actually did have some merit to it, since it takes place at a point in the story where Yukari still heavily dislikes Mitsuru and also has the gay awakening aspect. I mean, I'm not even a Yukamitsu fan, and even I thought it was a really interesting setup for a story. In fact, it had themes and plot points that the Makoto version lacked, and the reverse was totally untrue. The Makoto version was more canon accurate, but had less interesting ideas to explore. As such, I opted to drop the Makoto version and just go for the Mitsuru version, which ended up being far longer than a Tales from the Metaverse chapter, and was thus turned into its own story and split into 3 chapters. And this is the thing, I generally dislike ships based around best friends. I rarely find one I don't consider insipid and unimaginative. They typically have the concept of these two characters being together as the entire premise of the story, and rarely try to find an actually interesting idea to explore with them. Yukari and Mitsuru going from best friends to lovers is not an interesting premise. If anything, such a ship takes away from the power of their canonical platonic friendship. but Yukari realising she likes girls because she develops feelings for Mitsuru at a time when she still distrusts her, feeling like she's betraying the memory of her dead father, while being unsure if any of these feelings are real or forced upon her by Arcana lovers. That is an interesting idea worth exploring, and I want to see more interesting concepts like that for setting up a relationship. Granted, it's not quite as bad as shipping enemies with no rhyme or reason. Like, it's really off-putting to be reading, say, a Haryuji story that randomly says, oh yeah, and Joker and Akechi are fucking in the background. Like, why? Why make a phantom thief fuck the guy who murdered parents of two of their friends and try to murder Ren if you're not going to take the time to justify it? Fuck you! If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you. Today's recommended series is Persona 4 animated comic dub by Carbon Water. So this is an animated adaptation of a fan dub of a fan comic parody of Persona 4. I wouldn't call it a replacement for the original experience, since there are some things I think work better in just the fan dub video, but it's certainly an entertaining alternative experience. Check it out.